My name is Adriana Dorsey, and the moment my father walked into my store and announced, in front of a full room of customers, that I had 1 week to get out because my younger brother was taking over, something inside me went completely still. Not angry, not shocked, just still. Because in that exact second, while everyone else froze, I already knew one thing with absolute certainty. They had no idea who they were dealing with anymore. The bell above the door kept chiming as customers came in and out, unaware that my parents were standing 10 feet from the cash register, holding a stack of papers they printed off the internet, convinced they were about to erase the last 2 years of my life with cheap ink and confidence. My father's voice cut through the store, loud enough for everyone to hear. "This is family property, and it's time it goes to someone who actually needs it." He gestured toward my brother Spencer, like he was presenting a solution instead of a problem. Spencer smirked. My mother clutched her purse like she always did when she wanted to look supportive without committing to anything. And I stood there, behind the counter of the fishing tackle shop my grandparents built 50 years ago. My shop, feeling every pair of eyes slowly turn toward me. That was the moment the story really began. But to understand how we got there, you have to go back to the Tuesday before all of this exploded. Because betrayal rarely arrives without warning. We just don't recognize the signs until it's too late. That Tuesday afternoon, I was ringing up a customer who needed last-minute saltwater rigs before a charter trip. The weather had been perfect. Clear skies, light wind coming off the water, the kind of day Wilmington lives for. My phone buzzed on the counter. Dad. I almost didn't answer. He rarely called during business hours unless something was wrong. I put him on speaker without thinking. His voice came out cold, clipped, like he'd rehearsed it. "Adriana, the store is going to your brother, Spencer. You have exactly 1 week to pack up and get out." I didn't blink, didn't raise my voice, didn't ask why. I looked at the receipt printer humming beside me, the shelves I'd rebuilt with my own hands, the logo my grandfather designed hanging above the door. "I poured every dollar I had into saving this place," I said evenly. "I'm not going anywhere." There was silence on the line. Then my mother jumped in, quick and nervous, like she always did when she wanted to smooth things over without actually disagreeing with my father. "We have the papers," she said. "It's already decided." The call ended. No explanation, no conversation, no acknowledgement of the years I'd put into that building, just a verdict. That night, long after the store closed, I sat at the small desk in the back office and stared at the framed photo of my grandparents standing in front of the original sign. They opened that fishing tackle shop 50 years earlier, right on the edge of Wilmington's waterfront. Back then, it was nothing more than a narrow room with wooden racks and a cash box. But it grew into something the whole town recognized. And more importantly, it became the heart of our family. At least, that's what I believed when I was a kid. I spent every summer there, tying knots, stocking shelves, learning which reels worked best for Red Drum, listening to my grandfather talk to customers like they were old friends. My brother Spencer never cared. He's 3 years older than me, but he was always chasing the next big idea that never quite worked out. Tech startups, real estate flips, crypto schemes, you name it, he tried it. And every time he failed, my parents found a way to justify it. "He just needs one good break. He's still figuring things out. He has so much potential." When my grandparents passed away a little over a year ago, they left the store to me alone. Not because they didn't love Spencer, but because I was the only one who showed up. The only one who learned the business. The only one who stayed late. The only one who understood what that place actually meant. But there was a catch. The store came with nearly $750,000 in back taxes and supplier liens. When the will was read and the lawyer laid everything out, the mood in the room changed instantly. My mother looked relieved. My father shook his head. Spencer actually laughed. "It's not worth the headache," he said. Within days, all three of them signed formal disclaimer forms, giving up any claim to the property so the bank wouldn't come after them for the debt. I still remember my mom hugging me afterward, whispering, "You're welcome to deal with it since you know commercial real estate so well." Probate took 10 months. 10 months of court filings, creditor negotiations, and endless paperwork while I kept my full-time job as a commercial real estate specialist just to stay afloat. When the judge finally signed the final account and the clean title was recorded in my name alone, I took an unpaid leave from work, cashed out part of my savings, and spent the next 8 months rebuilding the store from the ground up. I knocked down walls to create an open layout, installed brighter lighting, built a small indoor casting area where customers could test rods, started free weekly clinics to teach kids how to fish. The local tourism board featured us in their summer guide. Charter captains started placing larger orders. Revenue tripled in 6 months. I quit my office job and ran the store full-time. For the first time in years, I was proud of something I built with my own hands. Life settled into a rhythm. I hired 2 part-time staff, kept shelves stocked with the newest reels, started planning a small expansion into the empty lot next door. My parents would occasionally ask how business was going, but they never visited. Spencer stayed busy chasing another venture. I thought the store was ancient history to them. I was wrong. Thursday morning, while unloading a shipment of saltwater lures, my phone buzzed again. A text from my father. "We'll be at the store tomorrow afternoon with the legal papers. Be ready to turn everything over to Spencer. This is how it's going to be." That familiar cold knot formed in my stomach. They actually believed they could show up and take what I'd rebuilt. What they didn't know was that I'd been preparing for this moment longer than they realized. By Friday afternoon, the store was packed. Weekend fishermen, kids testing casting rods, charter captains debating gear. Then the door chimed. Dad walked in first. Mom followed. Spencer came last, carrying a thick manila folder like it was a trophy. Dad raised his voice. "This is family property." Mom added, "We brought the paperwork." Spencer slammed the folder on the counter. Inside were cheap forms, quitclaim deeds, affidavits with crooked notary stamps. And then, my father leaned in and said the words that changed everything. "You're a girl, Adriana. You don't need something this big." I didn't react. I flipped through the papers slowly, already recording audio in my pocket, already seeing regular customers lift their phones. I smiled. "If these are solid," I said calmly, "you won't mind leaving them with me for my attorney to review." Spencer laughed. Dad gave me a deadline. Monday. As they left, I watched the door swing shut and felt something settle into place. They thought this was about entitlement. They didn't realize it was about evidence. And by Monday morning, the entire town would understand exactly what happens when you underestimate the woman who actually did the work. The second the door closed behind them that Friday afternoon, the store didn't go back to normal. Not really. People kept shopping. Kids kept testing rods. The register kept dinging. But the energy had shifted. Half the customers were pretending not to stare while secretly texting friends. A few regulars leaned in close and whispered, "You okay?" As if we were standing at a funeral instead of a tackle shop. I smiled. I rang them up. I thanked them for coming. But inside, my mind was already running 3 steps ahead. Because what my parents and brother didn't understand, what they had never understood, was that I don't panic. I prepare. That night, after I locked the doors and flipped the sign to closed, the silence hit me all at once. I climbed the narrow stairs to the small apartment above the shop, kicked off my shoes, and sat on the edge of the bed without turning on the lights. For the first time since the call on Tuesday, I let myself feel it. Not fear, betrayal. The kind that comes from realizing the people who should have protected you were quietly waiting for the moment you succeeded, just so they could take it from you. I replayed my father's words in my head. "You're a girl. You don't need something this big." He didn't mean the building. He meant power. He meant independence. He meant the fact that I no longer needed permission. Growing up, I'd been the responsible one, the fixer, the one who didn't cause problems. Spencer failed upward while I held things together. My parents called it supporting him. I called it exhausting. And now, the moment I built something undeniable, they decided it belonged to him. Because to them, I was still temporary. That was the breaking point. Not Monday, not the paperwork, not even the threat of being forced out. It was the clarity. I wasn't dealing with confused parents or a desperate brother. I was dealing with people who believed I should step aside quietly because it made their version of family easier. I stood up, turned on the desk lamp, and opened my laptop. The first call I made was to Brielle Hobbs, the attorney who had handled every commercial closing I'd been involved in over the last decade. She answered on the second ring. "Tell me everything," she said. So I did. I walked her through the call, the visit, the fake documents, the deadline. She didn't interrupt once. When I finished, she let out a short laugh, not amused, but confident. "Adriana," she said, "those papers wouldn't survive 5 minutes in court." That helped, but it wasn't enough. Because legal facts don't stop people who think entitlement outweighs reality. "I don't want them trying to force their way in," I said. "I don't want a screaming match or some last-minute stunt." "Then we document everything," she replied, "and we let them hang themselves with their own confidence." That night turned into a blur of preparation. I pulled every file I'd saved over the past 2 years. The original disclaimers my parents and Spencer signed, relinquishing all rights to the property. The final probate order closing the estate. The recorded deed showing my name and only my name on the title. I scanned everything, backed it up, printed multiple copies. Then I went back to the store floor and stood there alone, surrounded by shelves and glass cases and memories. This place wasn't just a business. It was proof. Proof that I could carry something heavy and still stand upright. Saturday morning came too fast. I opened the store like any other day, put on coffee, turned on the lights, smiled at customers. But the tension sat under my skin like static. By noon, the rumors had spread. People came in just to look and stayed longer than usual. Conversations drifted toward the front counter. Phones came out more often. I checked social media during a quiet moment and felt my jaw tighten. Spencer had posted a blurry photo of the storefront from across the street. "Big things coming. New owner taking over Monday. This place is finally getting what it deserves." Fire emojis, congratulations, high fives from people who had never stepped foot inside. My mother liked the post within 30 seconds. That was the moment my resolve hardened into something sharp. Because this wasn't just about taking my business. They were rewriting the story, publicly, painting me as a placeholder, a caretaker, someone temporary. I forwarded the post to Brielle with one line: "They're making it public." Her response came back immediately: "Good, that helps us." Saturday night, I barely slept. Every sound outside made my mind race. Every vibration of my phone made my chest tighten. What if they showed up early? What if they tried to change the locks? What if they brought movers without warning? By Sunday morning, exhaustion sat heavy behind my eyes. I stood in the shower longer than usual, letting the water run, reminding myself to breathe. This wasn't the first time I'd been underestimated. In my corporate career, I'd walked into rooms where people assumed I was the assistant. I'd closed deals men twice my age didn't see coming. I'd learned how to keep my voice steady when everything inside wanted to scream. This was no different. Sunday afternoon, Brielle sent me a draft document, an affidavit stating that my parents and brother had no further interest in the property and acknowledged that all claims had been permanently waived. "If they sign this," she wrote, "it locks the door forever. If they don't and keep pushing, we escalate." I stared at the screen for a long time. Part of me hoped, stupidly, that Monday wouldn't come, that my parents would wake up and realize how far they'd gone, that Spencer would back down, that someone would say, "This isn't right." But deep down, I knew better. They had already chosen. Sunday night, I walked through the store one last time before the confrontation. I ran my hand along the glass counters my grandfather installed himself. I straightened a display rack that didn't need fixing. I wasn't calming the store. I was grounding myself. Because the next day wasn't about winning. It was about drawing a line so clear they could never pretend not to see it again. Monday morning would be loud, but Sunday night was quiet. And in that quiet, I made a promise to myself. No matter what happened, I would not shrink. I would not apologize. And I would not let anyone convince me that the work I did was less valuable because of who I am. That was the point of no return. By Sunday night, fear had burned itself out of my system. What replaced it was focus. I stopped asking what if and started asking how. How do I control the environment? How do I eliminate ambiguity? How do I make sure that when they walk in on Monday, there is no version of reality where they can spin this in their favor? I sat at the small kitchen table above the shop with my laptop open, coffee untouched, and started building what I called my Monday binder. Not a scrapbook, not a pile of papers. Evidence. Every document was printed, labeled, and sleeved. The final probate order showing the estate closed. The recorded deed listing me as the sole owner. The original disclaimers signed by my parents and Spencer, irrevocable under state law. Bank statements proving I personally paid off the liens. Renovation invoices with my name on every contract. 3 identical copies. 1 for my attorney, 1 for the counter, 1 locked in the safe. Because when people lie confidently, the only thing that shuts them down is clarity. Late Sunday afternoon, my phone buzzed again. A text from Spencer. "Tomorrow's your last day in that store. Enjoy it while it lasts." I stared at the screen longer than I should have. Then I forwarded the message to Brielle without responding. Her reply came back instantly. "Good. That's intent." I exhaled slowly. Intent mattered. Sunday evening turned the store into something else entirely. Not a business, a stage. I installed additional cameras, high definition, cloud-backed, covering every angle of the counter and the front door. I tested motion alerts until even the smallest movement sent a notification to my phone. Nothing would be missed. Nothing could be erased. I stocked the front counter with fresh coffee and donuts, not because I wanted to be kind, because I wanted witnesses. By the time the sun dipped behind the water, everything was in place. I stood alone in the dim store, listening to the hum of the coolers, and felt something unexpected. Calm. They thought they were walking into chaos. They had no idea how organized I was. Monday morning came quietly, too quietly. I unlocked the doors at 6:30 a.m. like any other day, turned on soft music, brewed coffee. By 7:15, regulars were already drifting in, drawn by the free coffee and the rumors that had spread through town all weekend. I didn't announce anything. I didn't explain. I just worked. At 7:25, Brielle walked in, carrying a leather briefcase and a calm smile. She sat on a stool behind the counter like she belonged there, which, at that point, she did. At 7:58, a white moving truck backed into the parking lot. The logo was clear: 2 men and a truck. The crew leader stepped out, clipboard in hand, and paused when he saw the growing crowd inside. He hesitated before crossing the threshold. That hesitation told me everything. Moments later, my father's pickup rolled in behind the truck. My mother climbed out first. My father followed. Spencer jumped down from the bed, clutching the same manila folder like a lifeline. They walked in with purpose, with certainty, with the confidence of people who had never been challenged before. Spencer spotted the small handheld megaphone we used for sales events, grabbed it, and flipped it on. "Attention, everyone," his voice boomed. "As of today, this store officially has a new owner. Please clear the floor." Phones came out instantly. I stayed seated. I slid the evidence binder across the counter toward the crew leader. "Before you touch anything," I said calmly, "you need to see this." He opened it. The deed, the disclaimers, the probate order. He pulled out his phone and checked the public records. 30 seconds later, he shook his head. "Ma'am, I'm sorry. This job is under a different name. These documents don't match county records. We can't move anything without a court order." My father's face darkened. "This is family business," he snapped. Brielle stood. "Actually," she said evenly, "it's not." She explained, briefly, clearly. Probate closed, disclaimers irrevocable, documents fraudulent. The crew leader stepped back. "We're out," he said into his radio. "Job canceled." The truck started pulling away. Spencer's confidence evaporated in real time. "This isn't over," he hissed. "No," I said softly. "It is." That's when Brielle placed the final document on the counter, the affidavit. "All you have to do," she said, "is sign this acknowledging you have no claim, or you leave and face civil action. Silence fell. My father reached for the pen first. His hand shook. My mother followed, tears spilling onto the paper. Spencer hesitated until my father grabbed his wrist and pulled him forward. He signed like someone signing a loss. I slid the document into the binder, and just like that, the story changed. Not because I raised my voice, not because I humiliated them, but because I refused to move. The moment they walked out of the store, no one clapped, no one cheered, no one said a word. They didn't need to. The silence did all the talking. The bell above the door rang 3 times as they left, once for each of them, and then it stopped. The moving truck was already gone. The parking lot looked emptier than it had all morning. I flipped the sign to closed and locked the door. For the first time in years, I closed on a Monday morning. Phones started buzzing almost immediately. Someone had gone live in a local Facebook group. Someone else had stitched the video with commentary. By lunchtime, clips were everywhere. My brother shouting into a megaphone. My attorney calmly explaining the law. My parents signing away what they thought they were entitled to. The comments weren't kind. Why would they do this to their own daughter? She rebuilt that place from nothing. Greed always tells on itself. By that evening, the video had crossed 10,000 views. By the next day, it was double that. But the real consequences didn't show up online. They showed up quietly. First, Spencer lost his job at a local boat dealership. Customers had tagged the business under the viral clip. The owner called him in, showed him the video, and said it was bad for the brand. No severance, no reference. 2 weeks later, the county finished reviewing the attempted transfer. Because the fake quitclaim deed had been notarized and presented as real, it triggered penalties. When my parents couldn't pay, a lien was placed on their house. 6 weeks after that, foreclosure proceedings started. 30 years of memories boxed up. The story made the local paper under a headline no one could spin. Fake deed attempt costs family everything. And then, silence. No calls, no texts. No apologies disguised as concern. Just absence. At first, that hurt. Then it felt like peace. Life on my side moved forward. I broke ground on the empty lot next door and built a covered teaching pavilion. We expanded the free Saturday fishing clinics for kids. The tourism board featured us again that summer. Revenue stayed strong. The staff grew. The store became a place where families made memories instead of arguments. 3 months later, I stood behind the same counter, watching a young girl proudly show her father the knot she'd just learned to tie. And I realized something important. This was never just about a store. It was about boundaries. It was about the quiet pressure women are taught to accept, to step aside, to share what we earned, to shrink so others feel comfortable. I didn't win because I was louder. I won because I was prepared, because I documented everything, because I trusted facts over guilt, because I refused to believe that blood makes someone entitled to what I built. If there's one thing I want women to take from this story, it's this. You don't owe access to people who only show up when there's something to take. Protect what's yours. Put it in writing. And never assume fairness will come from people who benefit from your silence. Standing your ground doesn't make you cold. It makes you free. And freedom, real freedom, is worth defending.